Silence is not weakness, it is a divine weapon. In a world drowning in noise, chaos, and endless arguments, your silence can shatter the enemy's plan more powerfully than any word you could ever speak. God's chosen one, this is not surrender. This is strategy. This is the moment where your stillness becomes your shield, your fortress of faith, your hidden sword in the battlefield of life. Think about it. Why would the Creator of the universe tell his people, "Be still and know that I am God"? Why would Moses stand in complete silence at the Red Sea before the waters split open? Why would Jesus, standing before Pilate, remain quiet while accusations thundered against him? Because silence holds a supernatural strength. Silence disarms the enemy. Silence invites miracles. And yet, the question burns. Why is silence so feared? Why does the world push you to shout, defend, argue, prove yourself, when the greatest power lies in your stillness? What if your silence today is birthing the miracle of tomorrow? What if your refusal to react is the very thing that opens the floodgates of heaven? In this video, you will discover why silence is not just a pause, but a declaration of faith. Why your silence is your sword in spiritual warfare. Why your stillness can bring miracles like Hannah's silent prayer and Abraham's waiting faith. And how your silence builds a legacy that will echo for generations. Before we go deeper, I want you to take this moment and let your faith speak louder than words. Drop a 777 in the comments as your declaration of trust in God's perfect timing. And if you feel the power of this message already stirring in your spirit, like this video, subscribe to walk this path with thousands of chosen ones, and share it so the world can know. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strength. Silence is not weakness. Silence is often misunderstood. The world screams that if you do not speak, you are defeated. If you do not argue, you have lost. If you do not raise your voice, you have no power. But in the kingdom of God, the truth is the exact opposite. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strength. Silence is the unseen fortress where faith is forged and battles are won. The very moment you choose not to react, you step into the hidden power that frightens your enemies more than any word ever could. Your silence is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a miracle. Imagine Moses at the edge of the Red Sea. Behind him, an army thundering with rage. Before him, a wall of water that seemed impossible to cross. The people shouted, panicked, demanded answers. But Moses, chosen by God, did not shout. He did not argue. He stood silent, anchored in divine trust. And in that silence, the sea parted. His stillness became the gateway to freedom. This is not weakness. This is holy authority. When you are silent in faith, you align with the God who moves mountains, splits seas, and shakes the earth. Think of Jesus before Pilate. False accusations poured like poison, words sharp as daggers. The crowd roared, demanding his death, and yet he remained silent. That silence was not surrender. It was strategy. It was victory before the cross. It was the strength of heaven embodied in a man who trusted the Father completely. His stillness disarmed every enemy and revealed a power beyond human comprehension. If the Son of God could choose silence in the face of death, then your silence in the face of attack is not cowardice, it is divine confidence. But let's bring this closer to your life. Have you ever been in a moment when someone's words cut deep, when you wanted to fight back, prove your point, defend your honor, The instinct rises. Speak, argue, fire back. Yet a whisper in your soul says, "Be still." In that moment, you are faced with a choice. Will you let the noise of the world dictate your reaction, or will you trust God enough to be silent? That pause is not empty, it is full of power. When you refuse to react, you refuse to give your enemies fuel. You disarm their weapons by refusing to hand them your energy. Silence is a language of trust. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." Every time you stay silent, you are proclaiming with your life, "I trust God's justice more than my own defense." That is not weakness, that is unshakable faith. And faith, dear chosen one, is stronger than any argument. Picture yourself in a storm. Accusations swirl like thunder, doubts crash like waves, fear roars like a lion. Your silence in that storm is not emptiness, it is worship. It is saying, "God, you are my defender. God, you are my shield." In silence you declare that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. In silence you plant seeds of miracles. Hannah's lips moved in silent prayer, and God gave her Samuel, a prophet who would shape the destiny of a nation. Abraham waited in silence, and in due time Isaac was born. Their quiet trust was louder than 1,000 cries. Your silence is a mirror reflecting your strength. The enemy expects you to react, to lash out, to match chaos with chaos. But when you stay still, their plans collapse. Silence confuses darkness, starves evil, and feeds your spirit. This is why Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Stillness is not the absence of power, it is the presence of God himself. And when he steps in, nothing can stand against you. Look at your daily struggles. Maybe your finances feel tight. Maybe your relationships feel broken. Maybe your workplace feels toxic. The temptation is to complain, to argue, to vent your frustration. But what if instead you chose silence? What if you trusted God enough to hold your peace, to let him fight for you? That silence is not denial. That silence is surrender. That silence says, "God, I lean not on my understanding. I give you this battle." And when you give God the battle, he always wins. Your silence becomes a testimony. People will watch and wonder, how can you stay calm when storms rage? How can you stand still when everything around you crumbles? That calm becomes your loudest sermon. It preaches faith louder than any words. It shows that your strength does not come from yourself, but from the Lord who upholds you. That testimony is your legacy. Long after words are forgotten, the peace you carried in silence will echo. So let me ask you this. Where in your life do you need to stay silent? Which battle demands your stillness instead of your speech? Where do you need to let God's voice be louder than your defense? Reflect on it. Write it in your heart. And if you feel this truth stirring in your spirit right now, type 777 in the comments. Let it be your declaration that silence is not weakness, silence is strength, silence is faith. This silence is your fortress. It protects you, it builds you, it transforms you. Every time you choose not to react, you are not losing, you are winning. You are storing treasures in heaven. You are birthing miracles. You are shaping a testimony for generations to come. Silence is your sword in spiritual warfare, your shield in battle, your bridge to miracles. Remember, chosen one, your silence is not the absence of power. Your silence is power. And this truth leads us deeper into the mystery of silence, how it becomes not only your strength, but also your ultimate weapon of spiritual warfare, cutting through the lies of the enemy with a power unseen. Biblical echoes of stillness. Throughout the pages of Scripture, silence emerges again and again as a mysterious but undeniable force. It is not emptiness, it is not passivity, it is the sacred pause where heaven moves and history shifts. When you lean into silence, you align yourself with a divine rhythm that has carried prophets, kings, and ordinary believers through impossible battles. Silence is not the absence of voice. Silence is the amplifier of God's power. And the Bible is filled with echoes of stillness that testify to this eternal truth. Picture Jesus standing before Pilate. The crowd surges with fury, voices rising like a storm. Accusations are hurled at him, each word designed to break him down. Any other man would have defended himself, fought back, shouted for justice. But Jesus chose silence. That silence was not weakness. It was unshakable strength. In his quiet stillness, he displayed a confidence so unearthly that it unsettled his enemies. His silence became the loudest declaration of trust in the Father's plan. That moment reveals the secret. Silence is not surrender. It is strategy. His refusal to argue was not defeat, but the doorway to resurrection, to a victory that still reverberates across eternity. Now see Esther, a young woman thrust into the palace of a foreign king. Her people's lives were hanging in the balance, yet she did not rush to speak. She did not burst into the throne room with frantic words. She waited, she prayed, she fasted. Her silence was not neglect. It was preparation. And at the appointed time, when she finally opened her mouth, her words carried the weight of heaven. Her wisdom, born out of patient stillness, saved an entire nation from destruction. This is the echo of stillness. When you restrain your tongue, you create room for God's timing, and when the moment comes, your words hold the power of destiny. Consider also Job, surrounded by loss, grief, and the voices of friends urging him to curse God and die. Instead of screaming accusations at heaven, Job sat in silence, his heart torn yet anchored. His quiet endurance became a song of faith, a testimony that outlived the storm. In that silence, God revealed himself more profoundly than in any debate. Job's stillness gave way to a revelation that reshaped his life and multiplied his blessings. Even Elijah, the mighty prophet who called fire from heaven, discovered the divine secret of silence. After the whirlwind, after the earthquake, after the fire, God did not speak through the noise. He came in a gentle whisper. A voice so quiet that Elijah had to silence his own spirit to hear it. In that stillness, the prophet met the Almighty face to face. The echo here is unmistakable. If you want to hear God's voice clearly, you must quiet the noise around you and within you. Now, let us connect these echoes to your own life. How often are you pressured to speak before you are ready? Social media demands instant responses. Friends and enemies alike demand explanations. The world insists that silence equals weakness. But the Word of God tells you otherwise. Silence is the holy ground where your faith matures, where your testimony takes root, where miracles are born. When you refuse to argue, when you refuse to defend, you are saying with your life, I trust God's timing more than my own tongue. Think about the arguments you didn't enter, the gossip you didn't spread, the anger you didn't release. Each of those moments of silence became a seed. Seeds that grow into peace, wisdom, and breakthrough. This is why Proverbs 17:27 reminds us, the one who has knowledge uses words with restraint, and whoever has understanding is even-tempered. Knowledge and strength are proven in silence, not in endless words. Let me give you a real example. Perhaps you've faced betrayal in a relationship. The urge to lash out, to expose, to shout your pain to the world is overwhelming. But when you chose silence, you stepped back and let God be your defender. Maybe it didn't look like justice in that moment. But weeks later, months later, you saw how the truth surfaced on its own, how peace replaced bitterness, how your restraint protected your dignity. That silence was not wasted. It was a fortress of faith. Or maybe at work, you've been falsely accused. You wanted to defend yourself instantly, to prove your worth. But you held your tongue. You stayed silent. You trusted. Later, opportunities opened unexpectedly. Doors swung wide, and those who accused you faded into the background. That is not coincidence. That is the fruit of holy silence. Silence also teaches patience. It slows down your reactions so you can hear the whispers of wisdom. When Esther waited, she was not ignoring the urgency. She was aligning herself with God's perfect plan. Your silence today may feel heavy, but it is aligning you with blessings you cannot yet see. Silence is not wasted time. It is divine preparation. This is the healing message hidden in stillness. Silence heals wounds that words often deepen. Silence calms storms that arguments ignite. Silence invites the Holy Spirit to guide you where your emotions cannot. The echo of silence in Scripture is not just a reminder, it is a roadmap. It points you toward a way of living where peace is louder than chaos, where trust is stronger than fear, where God's timing is greater than human urgency. So I ask you now, chosen one, what silence is God asking you to keep? Which battle is He inviting you to surrender? Which moment requires your restraint instead of your reaction? Reflect deeply, because your silence today could carry the weight of eternity. Your stillness could be the very thing that saves your family, restores your future, and multiplies your blessings. If this truth is touching your spirit, type 707 in the comments below as a sign of your trust. Let it be your declaration that silence is not weakness, but a sacred strategy. Like Jesus before Pilate, like Esther in the palace, like Elijah in the cave, like Job in the ashes, you are not defeated in silence. You are empowered. You are fortified. You are unstoppable. And as we step from these echoes of stillness into the deeper fortress of faith, remember this. Every sacred pause, every unspoken word, every restrained reaction is building something eternal. Your silence is the echo of Scripture alive in you, a divine weapon, a testimony, a legacy. Silence as a fortress of faith. What protects you more, your words or your silence? The world says that defense lies in speaking louder, faster, stronger. But heaven whispers the opposite. True defense is not found in endless explanations, but in the unshakable stillness of faith. Silence is not emptiness. It is the solid wall of trust that nothing can break. When you choose silence in the middle of chaos, you are building a fortress of faith, stone by stone, moment by moment, until you are unshakable in the presence of storms. Imagine yourself on a battlefield. The enemy surrounds you, weapons drawn, waiting for you to panic. They expect you to lash out, to scream, to lose control. But instead, you stand silent. Your stillness unnerves them. Your calm disarms them. What they cannot see is that your silence is not weakness, but armor. Every unspoken word is a brick. Every moment of restraint is mortar. Every choice to trust instead of react is another layer of protection. Before long, you are standing inside a fortress, not built by human hands, but by faith itself. Psalm 46:10 declares, "Be still, and know that I am God." That is not a suggestion, it is a command. And with every act of stillness, you are reinforcing the walls of your fortress. You are declaring that you are not defended by arguments, but by the Creator of the universe. That is why silence becomes unshakable protection. The storms rage outside, but inside the walls of faith, you are calm, safe, strong. Think of Daniel in the lion's den. He did not cry out in fear. He did not bargain with his enemies. His silence was louder than their threats. And that silence became a shield as God shut the mouths of lions. Or think of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who stood before the fiery furnace. They did not scream for rescue. Their quiet confidence in God built a fortress so strong that even the flames could not touch them. Silence is not just the absence of noise, it is the declaration that faith is your shield and God is your defender. Now bring this into your everyday life. Maybe you are facing criticism at work. Colleagues whisper, accusations swirl, lies spread. The urge to defend yourself rises like fire in your chest. But what if you chose silence? What if you let your faith be your fortress instead of your arguments? In time, the truth will surface, your peace will speak louder than their words, and those who mocked you will see that silence was your strength. Or perhaps in your home, conflict erupts. Words fly like arrows, tempers flare like wildfire. Your silence in that moment is not avoidance, it is strength. By refusing to add more fuel, you are building a fortress that protects your peace and your family. In that silence, healing can begin. In that silence, God's voice can be heard. Every time you remain silent, you are laying another stone in your fortress. These stones are not fragile. They are eternal. They are carved from trust, from obedience, from surrender. Each brick says, "I trust God's justice more than my defense." Each layer says, "I believe His timing is greater than my reaction." And over time, your silence creates a fortress so powerful that the enemy's weapons break against it. This is why the enemy hates your silence. He knows that every time you hold back, every time you stay still, you are becoming stronger. He thrives on chaos, on words, on reaction. But when you do not give him that power, you starve him. Your silence denies him access to your heart, your mind, your destiny. But silence as a fortress is not only about protection, it is also about transformation. Inside the walls of stillness, God shapes you. He whispers wisdom you could never hear in the noise. He heals wounds you never thought would close. He gives peace that surpasses understanding. Silence is the sacred space where God does his deepest work. Think of Hannah, who poured out her heart silently before the Lord. Her quiet prayer, spoken without sound, became the seed of Samuel, a prophet who changed history. Her silence was not weakness. It was the fortress that sheltered her pain until God turned it into promise. Or Abraham, who waited in silence for years for the son God had promised. His stillness built a fortress of faith so unshakable that he became the father of nations. Your silence is doing the same. Each time you refuse to argue, each time you let go of the need to be right, you are building something eternal. You may not see the walls rising yet, but heaven sees them. Angels see them. The enemy sees them and trembles. Your silence is not just protecting you now, it is preparing you for the future. And here is the beauty. Your fortress of faith does not only protect you, it protects those around you. Your children will learn from your peace. Your friends will be drawn to your calm. Strangers will notice your strength. Your silence becomes a testimony, a sermon without words, a legacy of trust that others will inherit. So I ask you, chosen one, where are you building your fortress? Which moments of silence today are laying the bricks for tomorrow's testimony? Which battles are you surrendering to God instead of fighting with words? Reflect on it, because your silence is shaping your destiny. If you believe that silence is your fortress, type 777 in the comments below. Let it be your declaration that your protection is not in words, but in faith. Let it be your vow that you will trust God to defend you, to shield you, to fight for you. This is the power of silence. It builds walls that no enemy can breach. It creates peace that no storm can shake. It forges strength that no weapon can destroy. And as we step from this fortress into the next truth, remember, silence is not just defense. Silence is offense. Silence not only protects, it disarms, and that revelation changes everything. Silence disarms the enemy. The enemy thrives on noise. He feeds on your reactions, your anger, your arguments. Every time you lash out, you hand him a weapon. Every time you try to fight in your own strength, you give him fuel. But when you choose silence, something extraordinary happens. You cut off his supply. Your silence becomes a weapon sharper than any sword, a shield stronger than any wall, a move so unexpected that it dismantles the enemy's strategy before it even begins. Silence does not just protect you. Silence disarms. Picture a battlefield. Two armies stand ready, tension thick as smoke. One side waits for the other to charge, to roar, to move first. But you, God's chosen one, do not flinch. You stand still. You remain silent. The enemy grows restless. His plan begins to crumble. He expected your fury, but all he sees is your calm. He counted on your reaction, but all he faces is your stillness. And in that moment, he is defeated. Not because you shouted louder, but because you refused to play his game. That is the power of silence. Think about Jesus before his accusers. The Pharisees hurled insults. Pilate questioned him. The crowd demanded his death. They wanted him to argue, to defend himself, to lose his composure. But he stood silent. That silence shook the foundations of their scheme. They could not provoke him. They could not control him. His refusal to react was his declaration of victory. The cross was not the enemy's triumph. It was God's. And silence paved the way. Now look at Moses standing at the Red Sea. Pharaoh's army thundered behind, the sea loomed before, panic surged through the people. What did Moses do? He did not scream back at the army. He did not try to silence the people's fear with more noise. He stood still. His silence was his weapon. His stillness was his strategy. And in that silence, God moved, the waters parted, and the enemy drowned in defeat. Your life mirrors these moments more than you realize. When people gossip about you, they expect your retaliation. When someone lies about you, they hope for your outrage. When a situation feels unfair, the world dares you to fight back in anger. But when you stay silent, when you refuse to react, you rob your enemies of their power. They lose control. They lose their fuel. Your silence leaves them disarmed. Imagine someone throwing insults at you like arrows. Each word is meant to pierce your heart, to draw you into battle. But instead of firing back, you lower your weapon. You remain still. Suddenly, their arrows fall to the ground. Without your reaction, their attack collapses. Your silence turns their weapons to dust. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. This is divine warfare. Proverbs 26:4 teaches, "Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him." Every time you stay silent, you refuse to step into the trap. You keep your dignity. You maintain your peace. You walk in power. Silence becomes the strategy that turns the enemy's plan against him. But silence is not only defensive, it is offensive. It shifts the battle. It confuses the adversary. It weakens him until he has no strength left to fight. This is why Ephesians 6:12 reminds us, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world." Your silence is your sword. Every moment you hold your tongue, you are cutting through lies, breaking chains, and releasing angels to fight for you. Let's bring this closer to your daily reality. Maybe at work, someone constantly undermines you. They provoke you with subtle jabs, waiting for you to explode. But you refuse. You stay silent. Weeks later, their schemes are exposed. Not because you shouted, but because your silence disarmed their game. Or maybe in your family, a heated conflict erupts. Words fly, anger burns, but you stay calm. Your silence disarms the fire. Slowly, peace returns. Healing begins. That is not passivity. That is power. The lesson is simple but profound. Silence is your victory. When you remain silent, you hand the battle to God. You let him fight for you. You declare with your life, "The Lord is my defender. I do not need to prove myself." And when God fights, he never loses. Your silence is not you stepping back. It is God stepping in. Think of David before Goliath. The giant taunted, mocked, roared. But David did not shout insults back. His quiet confidence in God disarmed the giant long before the stone flew. The silence of trust always defeats the noise of fear. And the same is true in your battles. Your silence also disarms the enemy within. Fear, doubt, anxiety, all these thrive on noise. The more you speak them, the stronger they grow. But when you choose silence, when you breathe, when you wait, their power fades. Silence starves fear. Silence suffocates doubt. Silence breaks anxiety's grip. In stillness, you find the peace that guards your heart. And here is a deeper truth. Your silence is a sermon. People watch you. They see how you react under pressure. They expect anger, but they witness peace. They expect rage, but they find calm. Your silence preaches louder than any words. It testifies that your strength comes from above, and that testimony disarms not only your enemies, but also the hearts of those around you. So, where do you need to wield this weapon? In which battles do you need to lay down your words and pick up silence? Reflect deeply, because your silence today might disarm the enemy's attack tomorrow. Your silence could be the reason your family finds peace, your workplace finds justice, your life finds breakthrough. If this message is stirring in you, type 777 in the comments as your declaration. Let it be the mark that you choose silence over chaos, stillness over fury, trust over fear. Silence is not weakness. Silence is your hidden sword. Silence is your secret weapon. And as we move from disarming the enemy into the mystery of spiritual warfare, remember this truth. Silence not only breaks the enemy's power, it opens the gates of heaven. Your stillness does not just end battles, it births miracles. Silence as spiritual warfare. The greatest battles of your life are not fought with swords, guns, or even words. They are fought in realms you cannot see, against forces that thrive in the shadows, rulers of darkness, spiritual powers bent on your destruction. And in this unseen arena, silence is not weakness. It is warfare. Silence is your hidden weapon, your invisible sword, your unshakable stand that confuses the enemy and invites heaven to fight on your behalf. Ephesians 6:12 tells us plainly, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." This means that the person who insulted you is not the true enemy. The boss who overlooked you, the friend who betrayed you, the critic who mocked you, they are not the root. The battle is deeper. And when you understand this, you realize why silence is your strategy. When you remain silent, you refuse to fight the wrong battle. You refuse to give the enemy what he wants, your words, your fury, your fear. Instead, your silence shifts the battle into God's hands, and in His hands, victory is guaranteed. Imagine a soldier standing on the battlefield. The enemy expects noise, shouts, clashes, chaos, but instead he stands silent. His stillness unnerves the opposition because silence carries authority. It says, "I am not afraid. I know who fights for me." This is the posture of spiritual warfare. Every time you refuse to react, you are drawing your sword in the spirit. Every silent pause cuts deeper than any argument, because it is backed by heaven itself. Look at Jesus in the wilderness. For 40 days he faced temptation, the enemy whispering lies, twisting scripture, offering kingdoms. Jesus did not argue in rage. He did not debate endlessly. He responded with truth, and when the enemy pressed harder, silence carried him through. The devil thrives on noise. When you choose silence, you shut down his frequency. When you stop fueling chaos, you starve his schemes. Think about Jehoshaphat in 2 Chronicles chapter 20. Surrounded by vast armies, the people of Judah did not fight with weapons. They stood still, they praised, they waited. Their silence and worship invited God to ambush the enemy himself. What looked like passivity was the most powerful move of all. When you stay silent, you are stepping into this same realm of warfare. You are saying, God, I trust you to fight the enemies I cannot see. Now connect this to your daily life. When someone attacks you online, when gossip spreads, when conflict rises, the natural urge is to fire back, to defend yourself. But when you choose silence, you declare war in the spirit. Your silence is not passive, it is active trust. It is a sword that slices through lies. It is a shield that blocks accusations. It is a wall that stops the enemy in his tracks. The unseen world trembles when a believer chooses silence in faith because it knows God has entered the battle. Your silence is also a command signal to heaven. Every time you hold back, you are saying to angels, "Go. Fight for me." Psalm 91:11 says, "He will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." Silence activates this promise. You do not have to scream to summon heaven. Sometimes the loudest prayer is the one you never speak. Sometimes the most powerful warfare is the silence that says, "God, I surrender. God, I trust." Picture Hannah again. She did not scream her pain. Her lips moved, but no sound came. In that silent prayer, she released a force that shook the heavens. Samuel was born, and with him came a prophet who would anoint kings and alter history. Her silence was not empty. It was warfare. Or think of Abraham, who waited decades in silence. Each year of waiting was a battle against doubt, fear, despair. But in that silent endurance, he was waging war in the spirit, and Isaac was born as proof that God always wins. Silence is also a way of guarding your heart in battle. Proverbs 4:23 tells us, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." When you stay silent, you refuse to let anger poison your heart. You refuse to let bitterness control your future. You refuse to let fear dictate your destiny. Silence is the shield that guards your inner sanctuary while God fights the outer war. This is why the enemy pushes you to react. He knows that once you speak in anger, once you argue in fear, you have given him ground. But when you stay silent, you slam the door in his face. Your silence is your no to the lies, your yes to God's promises. It is your declaration that you are fighting on a higher level. Let me give you a real example. Imagine someone spreading lies about you at work. Your instinct screams to confront, to defend, to fight, but you stay silent. Weeks pass, and the truth comes out on its own. Your silence disarmed the enemy. Or maybe you face a personal betrayal. Words boil on your tongue, but you choose silence. Later, that relationship is restored, not because you shouted, but because your stillness gave God room to heal. Silence is not weakness, it is warfare. So ask yourself, where is God calling you to be silent in battle? Which fight is not yours to fight? Which attack is actually an opportunity to stand still and let God move. Reflect deeply, because your silence today may be toppling giants you cannot yet see. If this resonates in your spirit, type 777 in the comments right now. Let it be your declaration that your silence is your sword, that you choose stillness over chaos, trust over fear, faith over noise. Let it be your vow that you will fight your battles not with arguments, but with silence that shakes the heavens. And as we transition into the next truth, remember this: silence does not just end battles, it births miracles. Every quiet moment of trust, every unspoken prayer, every restrained reaction is planting seeds in the unseen. And those seeds will grow into victories you never imagined. Miracles born in silence. Silence is not the end of your story. It is the fertile ground where miracles take root. In the unseen space of stillness, when words fade and noise is stripped away, God plants seeds of destiny. What looks like emptiness to the world is overflowing with divine activity. Your silence today may be the womb where tomorrow's miracle is being formed. Think of Hannah. Her heart was shattered, her womb closed, her rival mocked her endlessly. Year after year she went to the temple, carrying her pain like a heavy cloak. She did not scream her bitterness. She did not shout her anger. Her lips moved, but no sound came. In that holy silence, she released her pain to God. And heaven heard what men could not. Out of her quiet prayer was born Samuel, a prophet whose life changed the course of Israel. Her miracle was not born in loudness, but in stillness. Consider Abraham. He waited for years, decades, for the promise of a son. Imagine the silence of those nights, when stars filled the sky, but no cry of a child filled the tent. Each moment of waiting was a battle. Each year of silence was a test. Yet in that silence, faith grew stronger. And when Isaac was finally born, it was clear. The miracle had been forged in the fire of waiting. The silence was not wasted. It was womb time, where faith gave birth to fulfillment. Now imagine your own life. Maybe you are praying for breakthrough, for healing, for restoration. You have spoken your requests, you have cried your tears, and now God is saying, "Be silent. Trust me." It feels like nothing is happening. But in silence, the soil is being tilled. In silence, the seed is germinating. In silence, roots are going deep where eyes cannot see. The miracle is not delayed, it is developing. Silence is not the death of your dream, it is the pregnancy of your promise. This is why silence must never be despised. Silence is sacred incubation. A baby grows quietly in the womb. A seed sprouts unseen beneath the soil. An answer to prayer matures in the silence of faith. What seems like stillness is actually activity at its highest level. And when the time comes, the miracle bursts forth, undeniable, unstoppable, unforgettable. Think about Jesus before his resurrection. For 3 days the tomb was silent. The world thought it was over. His enemies celebrated, his followers despaired. But in the silence of that grave, the greatest miracle of history was unfolding. Death was being defeated. Chains were being broken. The keys of hell were being seized. The silence of the tomb birthed resurrection power. That is the pattern. Silence precedes miracles. And this is the pattern for you. When your life feels silent, when heaven feels quiet, when prayers seem unanswered, do not lose heart. Silence is not God ignoring you. Silence is God preparing something greater than you imagined. The quietest seasons are often the most powerful. They are the incubators of destiny. Bring this down to your daily struggles. When your finances seem silent, no increase, no breakthrough, that silence may be birthing provision you cannot yet see. When relationships crumble and reconciliation feels impossible, silence may be preparing a restoration more beautiful than the original. When your health feels fragile, silence may be the ground where healing roots are being planted. Do not confuse silence with abandonment. Silence is strategy. Silence is preparation. Silence is pregnancy. Your silence is also your declaration of faith. Anyone can praise when the miracle is visible. But when you choose silence in the waiting, you are saying, I trust you, God, even when I see nothing. I believe in your promise, even when the evidence is absent. That faith moves mountains. That faith unlocks miracles. Hebrews 11:1 tells us, now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Silence is the embodiment of that assurance. There is also healing in silence. Sometimes your loudest cries come not through words, but through tears you never voice. In silence, God gathers those tears like jewels. Psalm 56:8 says, you keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book. Every silent tear is a prayer, and every prayer is planting the seed of a miracle. Think of a time in your life when you stayed silent, when you stopped explaining, stopped forcing, stopped striving. Later, when the breakthrough came, you realized the miracle was born not in your words, but in your trust. That testimony is proof. Silence births miracles. This truth demands a response. Where in your life do you need to stop talking and start trusting? Which dream requires you to stay silent and let God form it in secret? Which battle requires you to stop shouting and start standing still? Ask yourself, because your miracle may depend on your silence. If this word resonates with your spirit, type 777 in the comments as your declaration. Let it be your vow that you will trust the silence, embrace the waiting, believe in the unseen. Your silence today may be birthing the miracle that will change your tomorrow. And as we step forward, let this sink deep. Silence is not just about miracles in sacred moments of history. Silence also touches the raw places of your daily struggles. It transforms breakdowns into breakthroughs, despair into hope, endings into new beginnings. And that is where we are going next. Silence in daily struggles. Life does not only test your faith in grand, historic moments. It tests you in the quiet, ordinary battles, the unpaid bills on the table, the broken relationships that leave scars, the sleepless nights filled with questions no one else hears. These are the battles that press hardest on your soul. And it is here, in the raw corners of daily struggle, that silence becomes one of your greatest weapons. Silence in the storm of everyday life is not weakness, it is an act of holy defiance. It is saying, I will not let the chaos around me control the calm within me. Imagine standing at the kitchen counter, staring at numbers that don't add up. Rent is due, debt is rising, and your mind screams with anxiety. Everything in you wants to cry out, to complain, to spiral into fear. But in that moment, if you choose silence, something shifts. Your silence is not denial, it is surrender. It is laying your finances on the altar and declaring, Jehovah Jireh, my provider, I trust you. That silent trust can open doors that your panic never could. Think of relationships. A friend betrays you. A spouse wounds you with harsh words. A family member refuses to understand you. The urge to defend yourself, to argue, to escalate, burns inside. But when you choose silence, when you step back instead of lashing out, you create space for God to heal what your words could only worsen. Silence says, I will not fight fire with fire. I will wait on the God who restores. And in that silence, reconciliation can be born. Jesus himself modeled this. In the Sermon on the Mount he taught, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other also. This is not a call to be passive. It is a call to radical strength. Silence in insult is not cowardice. It is a declaration that your worth comes from heaven, not from human opinion. Every time you refuse to engage in petty battles, you step higher into divine perspective. Daily silence also dismantles the lies of self-doubt. How often do you find yourself caught in the cycle of negative self-talk? I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed. I always fail. Those words, spoken even within your own heart, become chains. But when you practice silence, when you pause instead of feeding those lies, you starve them. You give space for God's voice to break through. In silence, you hear him whisper, you are chosen, you are loved, you are more than a conqueror. This is why Proverbs 3:5-6 shines like a beacon. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Silence is the practice of submission. It is resisting the urge to lean on your own understanding. It is giving God the microphone in your life and letting his wisdom guide you. Now, picture the daily chaos of the world. Social media arguments, endless news cycles, voices demanding your reaction. You scroll, and your soul feels pulled into the noise. But when you step away in silence, you are reclaiming your peace. You are saying, I refuse to be consumed by the noise. My soul belongs to the shepherd who leads me beside still waters. Silence in this context is not withdrawal, it is warfare against distraction. Real healing is born in this kind of silence. The silence of walking in nature without your phone. The silence of praying instead of posting. The silence of listening instead of shouting. In these simple acts, your spirit is restored. Psalm 23 comes alive. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. And here is the lesson. Silence is not about ignoring your struggles. It is about entrusting them. The enemy wants you to believe that if you do not shout, nothing will change. But the truth is the opposite. When you stop speaking, you allow God to speak. When you stop controlling, you allow God to move. When you stop reacting, you allow God to restore. Think of a moment when you were about to explode in anger but held your peace. Later, you realized that your silence prevented greater damage. Or remember the time you wanted to quit, to declare defeat, but you stayed still. Later, breakthrough came unexpectedly. These are the hidden miracles of daily silence. So ask yourself, where do you need silence today? In your finances? In your marriage? In your workplace? In your mind? Silence is not avoidance. Silence is alignment. Silence is your declaration that you are not fighting alone. If this message touches your spirit, type 777 in the comments. Let it be your vow that you will practice silence not just in sacred moments, but in daily struggles. Let it be your testimony that you will trust, even when life feels unfair. And as we move into the next truth, remember this. Silence in daily struggles is not just about surviving the moment, it is about building a legacy. Every choice to stay silent today is shaping the testimony you will carry tomorrow. Your silence today becomes your loudest sermon tomorrow. The legacy of silence. Silence is never wasted. Every unspoken word, every restrained reaction, every quiet prayer plants something eternal. And what you choose to keep unsaid today does not vanish into the air, it echoes through generations. Your silence is more than a private victory, it becomes a legacy. It shapes the way your children will respond to storms. It influences your friends. It leaves a trail of faith for strangers who watch your life. Silence is not just for this moment, it is your inheritance to the future. Think of Jesus before his accusers. His silence was not only his triumph, it became the model for every believer who would one day be accused, mocked, misunderstood. His stillness gave birth to a testimony that has strengthened millions. His silence became a legacy that redefined power for all of history. The same is true for you. When you choose silence over noise, you are writing a chapter of faith that others will read long after your words are gone. Imagine a child growing up in a home filled with chaos, arguments, shouting, endless strife. But then imagine that child seeing a parent who chooses peace, who chooses silence, who refuses to fight with words but stands firm in trust. That child learns a new way of living. That child inherits a legacy of faith. Your silence today may be the reason your children walk in peace tomorrow. Think of Hannah again. Her silent prayer not only birthed Samuel, it birthed a prophetic line that anointed kings. Her quiet tears turned into a testimony that still inspires believers thousands of years later. That is legacy, or Abraham's decades of waiting, his silent nights of faith under the stars. His trust became the foundation of nations. Generations still call him the father of faith because his silence left an inheritance too great to measure. Silence also speaks louder than any sermon. People around you notice when you do not react. They see the calm in your eyes when storms rage. They feel the peace in your presence when chaos surrounds. They wonder, what power is this? How can they remain unshaken? Your silence preaches without words. It tells the world that your anchor is not in circumstances, but in the living God, and that unspoken sermon will be remembered long after spoken ones are forgotten. Consider Daniel in the lion's den. His silence as he faced death testified louder than any speech. The king himself declared the greatness of God because Daniel remained calm. That testimony was not just for Daniel's time, it became a legacy of faith that believers still cling to when they face danger. Your silence carries the same weight. It is not just your story, it is part of God's larger story through you. In your daily life, this legacy is always being written. When you stay silent in conflict, your spouse sees strength. When you refuse to retaliate, your co-workers witness integrity. When you hold your peace under attack, your community sees faith. Each act of silence leaves a mark, building a reputation of wisdom, trust, and strength. That reputation becomes your legacy. And legacy is not only about what others remember, it is about what heaven records. Matthew 6:20 says, "Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal." Every silent act of trust is a deposit in heaven's bank. Every unspoken word is a treasure stored away. And one day, your legacy of silence will be revealed as eternal riches. The beauty of silence is that it multiplies. One choice to stay silent today inspires someone else tomorrow. One act of stillness breaks a cycle of chaos in your family. One refusal to retaliate changes the culture of your workplace. Your silence spreads peace, and peace outlives you. That is legacy. So I ask you, what kind of legacy are you building? Are your children inheriting peace or chaos? Are your friends inspired by your trust or drained by your arguments? Are strangers strengthened by your calm or disturbed by your noise? Your silence today decides the answers. If this truth resonates with your spirit, type 777 in the comments right now. Let it be your declaration that your silence will not only protect you in the present, but also bless generations in the future. Let it be your vow that your silence will be your loudest sermon, your greatest testimony, your eternal legacy. And as we move forward, remember this: silence is not the conclusion of your story. Silence builds strength, births miracles, and leaves a legacy. But it also demands a response. The final step is to take what silence has taught you and transform it into action. The payoff of silence is not just inner peace, but a calling to share this truth with the world. That is where the journey leads next. Silence has carried us on a journey far deeper than words could ever take us. From the Red Sea, where Moses stood still, to the courtroom where Jesus remained silent before Pilate, to Hannah's whispering lips birthing Samuel, every story in Scripture points us to this eternal truth. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. Silence is strength. Your stillness is not the absence of power. It is the very evidence that you trust in a God who never fails. Every time you held your tongue, every time you chose not to argue, every time you sat quietly with your pain instead of shouting your despair, heaven was watching. Angels were dispatched. Battles were being fought on your behalf. Miracles were already unfolding in the silence you thought was empty. Think about your own life. The struggles, the heartbreaks, the betrayals that tempted you to scream, to fight back, to explain yourself. And yet, when you chose silence, you found that peace arrived quietly. Doors opened unexpectedly. Strength grew inside you without explanation. That silence was not wasted. It was sacred soil. It was the hidden ground where your greatest testimony is now taking root. Silence has written your story in ways you may not even realize yet. It has shaped you into someone stronger, calmer, anchored. It has given you a fortress of faith, a testimony of trust, and a legacy that will echo long after your voice is gone. So where do you need silence now? Where do you need to stop reacting, stop explaining, stop defending, and simply trust? Is it in your finances, where anxiety screams but faith whispers, "Be still"? Is it in your relationships, where conflict begs for retaliation but peace is found in silence? Is it in your mind, where doubt and fear shout loud but God's whisper waits for space to be heard? Ask yourself, because your silence today could be birthing the miracle you've been praying for. And here's the beautiful paradox: silence is not the end. Silence is the beginning of something louder, something eternal. Your silence is preaching a sermon louder than your words. People around you see your calm when chaos explodes. They feel the peace radiating from you when storms rage. They wonder, what kind of strength is this? What kind of faith holds steady in the fire? And that testimony may be the loudest sermon you ever preach. Maybe the greatest gift you give to the world is not your words, but your silence. This is your moment to step into that truth. This is your time to let your silence be your declaration. Comment 777 below if you're ready to embrace this sacred weapon, this divine stillness that confuses the enemy and opens the gates of heaven. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that silence is not weakness, that silence is their hidden strength. Hit like if this word touched you, and subscribe to walk with thousands of chosen ones learning to wield silence as their sword. And let me say this with all sincerity: if this video has brought peace to your soul, if it has lit even a small spark of hope in your darkest night, I invite you to support this mission in whatever way you feel led. Even the smallest act of energy, encouragement, or kindness helps me keep creating these messages, helps me continue sharing the word that heals and restores. Every gesture, no matter how small, is priceless to me. I thank you with all my heart. Silence is your fortress. Silence is your weapon. Silence is your legacy. When the world screams for your reaction, choose stillness. When the enemy demands your fear, choose silence. When life pushes you to explain, argue, or prove yourself, stand firm and let your silence testify. Because silence is not surrender, it is victory. It is the loudest proclamation that your faith is in a God who fights your battles, heals your wounds, restores your soul, and writes your story with a power that no voice can erase. Carry this truth with you. Let it sink into your spirit, and let your silence today echo into eternity as proof that you are not defeated. You are chosen. You are unshakable. You are unstoppable. Your silence is not weakness. Your silence is your greatest strength.